Meeting. All right. It's 6:02 right now. We're going to call the meeting to order. I wanted to welcome everyone to the Peninsula Community Planning Board Candidate Forum. Tonight, we have a total of 8 candidates here who we're going to get to know further as we get into the meeting, but I want to thank you all for your participation. I also want to thank the election committee. We have our election coming up next week. That's the next phase of this process. And there's just a lot of work that goes into making this a successful production. So I want to give a shout out to the election committee members that are here as well, and for their help with getting the annual election off the ground. And so my name is Mandy Havlick. I'm the first vice chair as well as the election chair for this year's election. And I've been serving on the Peninsula Community Planning Board. This will be my 7th year. And again, I want to remind everyone that this session is being recorded and will be posted on the PCPB website after tonight's meeting. So tonight we have our 8 candidates who are running for the board, and this forum provides an opportunity for them to introduce themselves and just share their vision for our community. And so additionally, we'll have a Q&A session after they make their brief introductions, and we'll ask you to provide questions to these candidates and further engage with them. So a few housekeeping items just to keep in mind, because we are going to be posting this onto a website. You want to be mindful of your behavior, keep it polite, keep it civil. And you want to make sure that you're muted unless you're speaking, so we can minimize background noise. So if you're not speaking, you need to be muted. If you have questions for the candidates, you can submit them in the chat and or save them to verbally ask the question to the candidates. We'll take them in order of receipt. And then again, we want to just keep the questions concise and clear, because every candidate will have an opportunity to rebuttal or respond to the question that's asked by the community member. I would like to wrap this up about 7 o'clock. I know we've all got very busy lives, and I want to ensure that we're timely and getting everyone on to what they need to do next. But we'll try to address and answer as many questions as possible without keeping us here till the cows come home tonight. So, and again, let's just get started. So you're probably wondering, some of you are like, what is a community planning group? What do we do? What is this club, or what is this board that I'm wanting to get more involved in? Or you're a community member here and you've been to a couple of meetings, but you may want to, you don't have a clear understanding of what it is. But really what it is they were playing a vital role, and they were implemented in our city in the 1960s and 1970s. And that's when the city council formally recognized them as mechanisms for community input in land use making decisions. And so these groups help provide citizens and other decision makers when it comes to like development projects, your parks, your environment, long range planning, parks, your streets, infrastructure issues, or large capital improvement projects that the city is wanting to implement in our neighborhoods. And so we are an all volunteer board. Oh, and we also give inputs on the airport. We're all in Point Loma. We know the Point Loma pause, and we know about the flight path. So those are some ways that you can advocate and bring input to the city of San Diego, and in a way, and advocate for your community. So I've really enjoyed this experience, and I'm always encouraged by people who are wanting to show up as volunteers and show up for their community. So let's hear more from our candidates. I wanted to go ahead and allow each of the candidates to provide a 1-minute introduction, to introduce themselves and explain why they're running for the Peninsula Community Planning Board. And so I'll call on each candidate in alphabetical order, and we'll give them 1 minute. And be mindful of your time. I don't have a timer that I can display here. I'll keep track on my phone, but I don't like gonging people. So if you are, after a gentle reminder, if you surpass 1 minute, I'm going to mute you. So just keep that in mind. So with that, let's get started. I would like to ask Christine Smith. You have the floor. You have 1 minute to provide an introduction to the group. Thank you. Are you here, Christine?
I think you're on mute, Christine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can. Yes, sorry
Okay,
about
all
that.
right.
I'll
Sorry.
start you now.
Okay, thanks. I'm Christine Smith. I've lived here in the Sunset Cliffs area for 25 years. For the last 4 years, I've been involved with an organization called Neighbors for a Better San Diego on there as a policy analyst, where I've spent 4 years learning and reading and providing updates and recommendations to the city on land use codes. And I'd like to be able to use that knowledge to sort of help build the peninsula, because I've this is my home. I've raised two boys here. And I think that this is a great place to live. And I do think that there are some great projects that have come into the community over the past few years, but I also think that there are some predatory projects that have come in. And I'd like to use my knowledge to sort of make sure that the things that are coming in are going to benefit our communities and not necessarily predate on us. I think that we've had some great developments in the area, like the Pocket Park. I also am supportive of the aquatic center that they're proposing down there at Liberty Station. But then I'm also been involved in helping push back on some of the like the Complete Communities project that's down on Rosecrans and the one that was down in Ocean Beach. And I think my 1 minute is up, so I will pause. You're on mute, Mandy.
Okay, really quick point of order that I want to bring up to the board. I believe we have a quorum issue. We have too many board members here. Does that matter if it's does that matter for us to continue, or do we need to have someone remove themselves from the board, from the meeting? Because I count 8 of the 15 board members here.
I don't believe we're doing it. I mean, taking any formal action.
No.
Yeah, oh, that's true. Yeah, we're not taking any formal action. Okay, that's fine. All right, I just saw that. Thank you. Thank you for clarification. I just noticed that count. All right. All right. Thank you, Christine, for those comments. Cliff, if you have the floor right now.
Yeah, thanks, Manny. I appreciate it. And my apologies for being in the airport today. And I did not realize the applications get posted, so I would have typed it out otherwise. But Point Loma for 8 years. My name is Cliff Graham. Really got involved with the community more and more as I've got more experience in land use. So my background, just quickly, is 12 years as a pilot in the Air Force with 4 tours in Iraq. So I know a lot about aviation, know a lot about aviation safety. Was a safety officer. Worked with the SEALs, the Delta, the Rangers, kind of chasing Zerkawi for most of that 4 years, 3 of those 4 years. And then my last 15 years, I've been in land use and infrastructure development, going through CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, getting CUPs, getting bidding permits, working through codes, so forth. I'm actually currently now the CEO of a $2 billion company. We build projects all across California infrastructure. 200 employees, valued about $2 billion. We're doing infrastructure projects. We're building one right now in Kern County that's about $500 million. So really no CEQA, no CUPs, no land use, no aviation, and felt like that would be a great place. And the reason I got involved was I met Mandy as a new member of the Rotary Club and talked about experiences, and she thought I'd be a good match. So
time.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you know me, I'm using my mouth for goodness, spreading the word about these opportunities. Come join my volunteer gang. So yes, and if any of you want to know about the Rotary off the record, we can talk about that later if you want to know more about that. All right. Thank you, Cliff. I appreciate that. Dee Brown, you have the floor.
Oh, Dee, you're on mute, so we can't hear you just yet.
Yeah, go ahead. I can hear.
On the bottom left of your screen, there's a little microphone icon. And if you click on that, it should unmute you. So then we can hear you.
Thank you, Kelsey.
The beauty of Zoom. I say that about 100 times a day.
You get a bingo card for all the interactions, right?
Exactly.
Right. Dee, I'm going to send you a message. Did you get a request to unmute? Okay.
Can we just come back to
Yeah,
her?
Dee, we'll come back to you. I'm going to move on to Jacqueline, and then Dee will come back to you and give you some time to resolve those issues. All right. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Hi, I'm Jackie Gulick. I have been in Point Loma since 1997 and raised my three girls here at Point Loma High School. I'm also a Navy brat. My dad was in the military, so I have an affinity to the military. I work at USD in the real estate program, Burnham Moore Center. I've been on the board now for 3 years. I've sat on the Long Range Planning Board. And I feel that my experience with a very large institutional real estate center has added some value to being on the board. And I'm very passionate about making sure that our community is built appropriately and not excessive building with no parking. So I want to keep our community in a lot of ways what we see today, but we understand that we need to have responsible development. So I believe that I have that also in mind.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacqueline. I really appreciate your service on the board and wanting to come and run again. So, all right, Dee, are you ready to go, or if okay, we're still waiting on her. Javier, if you want to go ahead and start, let's go ahead and start with you.
Okay, good evening. I'm Javier Saunders. I'm a longtime resident of Point Loma, and I'm proud to say I'm a Point Loma High graduate. I raised my family here. I have 40 years of civil engineering experience in public works. I served 16 years with the city of San Diego as an engineer, and also 7 years with the Port of San Diego as the assistant director of engineering. My whole career has been dedicated to public works infrastructure and making communities better. Well, as most of you know, I'm currently finishing up my first term here on the board, and it's been a great pleasure to work with the board and the community on a lot of important issues, such as opposing SB 10 and repealing the ADU bonus program. Those were very positive for the community. However, there's just a lot more challenges coming our way from the mayor's office as it attempts to change the character of our single-family neighborhoods. You know, I believe with my past public works and board experience, I'll be able to contribute to the community and the board and make Point Loma a better place to live, work, and play, and protect our single-family neighborhoods.
Okay.
I would welcome a second term and your support.
All right. Thank you, Javier. We next, Dee. I see we've got
Yes, just one.
Sure.
Just 1 second.
You
Go
know,
to the next person.
sure, that
Now I
sounds
gotta
great.
You'll get set up.
That's great. No worries. We've got time for these technical issues that come up sometimes during these meetings. So, all right. Well, Meredith, you have a minute as well, and she wants to. She's got a presentation that she wants to share. So I went ahead and allowed you can to screen share. So I'll start the timer, get the presentation up to share with the group. Can everyone see that? Give a thumbs up or a yes.
No. Yes.
Oh, now you
It's up
can?
now. Yeah, there we
Okay,
go.
good.
Yeah.
All right, you have the floor. Go ahead, Meredith. Whenever you're ready, you can start, Meredith.
You might be muted.
Oh, Meredith, I believe you're muted. I asked her to unmute.
There we go. Sorry.
All right, no worries.
Sorry
You
about
go ahead
that.
and-
My name is Meredith Munger, and as you can see, I am a lender on ADUs. And I particularly work with families and especially seniors who need additional income. And the reason the progress I brings is two things. One, I do math. I know that parking brings in more income. I know that great design brings in more income. And I can help make the case for more beautiful design, parking, and so on with the math. Math doesn't lie, and that's what a lot of investors and developers, but even families are using. But what I also bring in is a policy nerd perspective. And let me quick thing to show you. This is Boston in 1616. And as you can see, these are single family homes on large lots. And over time, these are the same lots. And this is Boston today. We cannot say Boston is not beautiful. Even gorgeous Coronado. This is how gorgeous Coronado started out, right? And we know what it looks like today. Here is the matter of fact. Housing policy is a generational issue. We started with the baby boomers, and my generation, Gen X, was half the size. So for over 40 years, almost 50 years, we have not built housing. But now you have millennials whose oldest age is 45, and they've got full families. And you've also got Gen X, which is over. And while we fight, the developers are taking it over.
Meredith,
Yep.
yeah, you have time.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate the effort that you've taken into this. If you want to go ahead and stop the screen sharing
Yeah.
and come back into that. Dee, are you ready for us?
Okay, let's try this again.
All right, we've got this.
Good evening, board members and candidates. Although I'm a fairly new renter in the Point Loma community, I'm not new to our government and elected officials, forgetting it was us, the people of our community and other communities, that voted, and they were sworn in to represent us. I would be pleased and honored to join the Peninsula Community Planning Board and to help remind them it is our community and to continue the board's good works. I've attended several city council meetings, community forums, and PCPB meetings. As my candidacy application states in brief, I do have extensive experience representing the community and in public service and have advocated community before the city council. I believe change is inevitable and can be good, but only when it does not create excessive density nor disrupt neighborhood character. In brief, some things I would hope to accomplish is to preserve the
Time.
respect for community input, which is under threat.
Time.
Okay. Well, my candidacy says the things I would have said.
Oh, good. Good. Thank you so much for that. All right. Is PJ here? All right. PJ Luca is not here. He is a candidate, but he is also an already existing board member. So it appears that he wasn't able to attend tonight, but he is still eligible as a candidate. You can find more information about PJ and all the other candidates on our website at pcpb.net to find out more about the candidates. All right. And then Sean. Sean is our final introduction. Sean, you have the floor.
All right, nice. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sean Delicato. Living in the OB Point Loma intersection, I would say. If you go according to zip code, I'm in OB, but I am south of Point Loma Avenue. So after being nomadic for 2.5 years, I decided to settle here last June. I've house sat in the area a couple of times before, but I'm much less experienced in this peninsula than a lot of you. So I'm originally from East Tennessee. And if you don't know exactly where that is on the map, picture Dolly Parton. I went to the same high school as her, different time, unfortunately. But I graduated from the University of Tennessee with a degree in electrical engineering. I now work remotely studying tech markets and regional trends and have a recent focus on geopolitical tensions, if you can imagine. I'm a Rotarian, so I see some familiar faces here, which is great to see. And yeah, I find myself increasingly working Saturday mornings in Sunset Cliffs Natural Parks, learning about the gardens there and native plants. So I'm passionate about nature, about being outside, about our peninsula, and it would be an honor to work with all of you in this new community and learn more about all of you as well. So I don't have a presentation, but I wanted to show you a painting that I did recently. A tiger. Yeah.
Meredith has some competition. Sorry. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. I want to thank you all for the very good introductions. It's always great to know our community members more. And so regardless of the outcome, I encourage every one of you all to continue your participation in these meetings. They're a great way to get involved and voice your opinion and advocate for your community. So now at this time, we're going to go ahead and open up the Q&A session, and we're going to allow the community to offer up some questions to the candidates. And so there's different ways you can do this. You can do it in the form of a verbal question, or you can put the question in the chat and we'll go in order. But before we do that, I'd like to open up the questions to my election committee members to go first, to ask any questions that they may have for the candidates. I will allow for a minute response, up to a minute. You don't have to utilize that entire minute if it's not necessary. Some of these may be yes or no, or very simple, basic question responses. So keep that in mind. You have up to 1 minute to respond. But before we open it up to other board members and the community members, I'd like to ask if there are any election committee board members who would like to ask questions of the candidates to raise their hands. Okay, I see Angela. Yes, Angela.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all to the candidates for willing to come here, and everybody, I wish the best of luck to all of you. My question is I'm sure most of you are aware that we have various subcommittees, such as traffic, environmental, parks, environmental. As Fred likes to say, our bread and butter is project review. We have airport. Am I missing something, Mandy?
No, I think long-range planning.
Oh, long-range planning.
Yeah.
And then we also have liaisons, such as positions to go to the Midway Planning Group and liaison with Liberty Station. So my question to all of you is, would you be interested in being a chair of one of those committees, and which one really, interests you and why?
Sure. Let's go ahead and open up. I'll start. We'll go from a different sequence. So Sean, you'll go first this time. You have 1 minute max.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I checked off quite a few of these boxes. As good as I think I would be at project review, I think that I would enjoy Parks and Recreation probably the most, followed by long range planning because I'm very strategic focused, environmental as well. And I did check off Liberty Station too, just because I think that the story is very interesting. I think the development has been very interesting, and I'd like to learn more about how all of that works. So yeah, or as a liaison as well to the OB Community Planning Group would be very fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right, PJ, Meredith.
Yes, I'm particularly interested in long-range planning because my hope is to not wait for these projects to come, but actually do a proactive outreach to developers that we like and create a program indicating the projects that we want. That will help attract better developers who really better understand what we want, so they design to that. And so I think I could look at that approach, help to gain consensus among all parties about the direction we go, and then do a proactive, activities with developers to actually get the outcome we want, rather than just wait for crap to show up.
Right. Thank you. The next one is Javier.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy. And as some of you know, I've chaired the Long Range Planning Committee, and it's really been a pleasure to work with the board and the community on some very important issues, which I mentioned. We opposed SB 10 and most recently repealing the ADU bonus program. I would like to continue to participate in the Long Range Planning Committee if I was so reelected, but my vision would be to co-chair it. There's a lot of activity looking down the pipeline. For instance, Midway Rising EIR is going to be coming out. The NAVWAR EIR is going to be also coming out soon, which tremendously impact traffic for our community. We want to stay proactive and address those concerns. There's also state legislation. We certainly want to get ahead of some of the loopholes to protect our 30-foot coastal height limit.
Okay.
So there's a lot of activity. So I certainly would like to co-chair it.
All right. Thank you, Javier. Jacqueline.
I agree with Javier because I'm on the same board. There's a lot going on, and I think we all need to be super involved and educated on what our city is doing. And we've realized that a lot of it is circumventing the planning boards and the long range planning boards. And I think we need to continue to push back on some of the initiatives, especially those like Rosecrans and Talbot, where there's minimal parking and it's going to create an issue for our community. And the Midway Rising has a lot of issues that we need to address as far as traffic and how they're going to get in and out, how many housing units they're proposing, 2,500 or so right now. So there's a lot going on in our community, and I would like to continue to stay involved since I'm pretty aware of those with Javier and Andrew and all of us that work the community long range planning board.
Time. All right. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. All right. Dee, do you have 1 minute?
I think one of the things that I would be very interested in is the long range planning board. And simply because that's, I think, is what has been a lot of problems is people come up with ideas, just like the ADUs. They came up with ideas, which was a very good thought, but they forgot to look at the big picture and find all the think of the loopholes that would be created by it. And so I think long-term planning is where I would be very interested in being, because that's what we need to look at, is what long-term planning is. So we can not just help the people of today, but help the people of tomorrow as well. And that's about all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Dee. All right, Cliff, you have the floor.
Yeah, I think there's several. Obviously the airport with being a pilot and actually working through that process of building approaches and so forth. When I was there, also safety officer. Environmental is what I do kind of for a living as a developer. Is what so EIRs I know very well. Written them, I know how to stop them as well too, which is also a good idea because I have to battle those quite a bit with what I do. And then also, long range planning obviously is a great one. And I'm in Sacramento once a month with our legislators here, going to DC in April, and so I already have like a lot of connections with representatives both at the state level and the federal level that I deal with on a regular basis. So definitely can help with that as well too. But again, I think just being a developer, I also help with the long range planning for Solano County when they built their county long range planning process. So I've been just part of that group as well too. So happy to be on any of them wherever is needed.
Thank you, Cliff. All right, Christine.
Hi, I'm primarily interested in project review. I know the code quite well from my past 4 years of having dug through it, and I get frustrated sometimes. And it's one of the reasons why I want to be on the board is actually I've watched projects come forward, and I've actually watched developers make statements that are not actually accurate. So, for example, in the Ocean Beach project came forward for complete communities, one of the things they offered was that they would say that there would be no short-term vacation rentals in there, and if they approved it, they would agree to that. But that's already in the code. That's already a requirement. So it really wasn't a concession on their part. It was really a trick. I've also seen developers come through who've come with projects for down in off of Rosecrans that were going to exceed the 30-foot height limit, and they sort of said, "Oh yeah, we've got an exemption," and you're like, "No, there's no exemption just because you're there." So I do see that, and I think that I would, knowing the code well enough to be able to push back to make sure that those things don't happen in our communities. I'm interested in long range planning as well, but it seems like there's a lot of interest in that. But I've worked on helping in our role, and I've been involved in and working with. Okay, never mind.
Thank you. Sorry about that. This is the most uncomfortable thing.
I get
whenever
it. I do it.
I host a meeting, I'm gonging people. It's like I feel so bad.
You're doing a great job of being nice about it, Mandy.
Oh my gosh. Well, don't test me, All
We
right.
get experience by being parents, right?
Yes, I know. I know. Herding cats, right? Herding cats. All right. So let's go ahead to the next. Any other election committee board members who would like to ask questions of these candidates before we open the floor to the rest of the attendees?
I just want to tell everyone, thank you for your thorough answers. I appreciate it.
All right. Not Corey?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, everyone, for your considering to join the board and your little background on each of you. The little bit of the presentations and PowerPoints and pictures, very much appreciated. The question I have for you, and thank you for describing some of your backgrounds that would be beneficial to joining the board. What would be your key issue if you had 1 year on the board that you would want to accomplish this year?
All right. Let's go ahead and start with Meredith.
That's 1 year is probably not enough, but I think we need to come to a community consensus, acknowledging the very fact that we have an avalanche of a population. And the reason why the city and the state legislature is bypassing the planning boards is because the planning boards have said, no, 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 no. And that's not a solution, unfortunately, for a lot of people. And that's why Mayor Gloria is all about housing, because he is overwhelmingly knows housing is the top voting issue in America, especially San Diego, where the cost of living went up 20%. But we've got to find a consensus. I call it inspired design. Can we come to an consensus? You look at the world's most beautiful cities, and there's solutions there that I think people would like. You preserve the single family areas and you create it's called medium density zoning that can accommodate that housing in a reasonable way.
Thank you. Time. All right. Javier.
All right, found my mute button. Well, upcoming, probably within the next 6 months, the planning board's going to come back with the ADU bonus program. What I'd like to accomplish with the board and in the community is to eliminate the bonus program within the SDA and limit it to the transportation priority zone where it belongs in accordance to state law and regulations. I think that would be one of my top priorities, is to protect our single family neighborhoods and to make sure that the ADU bonus program is in line with the state program.
Thank you, Javier. The next one, Jacqueline.
I have to say to ditto to Javier, because I think that policy is going to destroy single family communities, and we need to be smart on where we add the additional housing units and not destroy single family units, and consider a bus stop a 1 mile mass transit, because that's not the case. We know that with Rosecrans and Talbot right now, that is not a unit that we would embrace in our community based on what it would create in parking congestion. So I'm all about creating smart development and not destroy communities that are already taking on a lot of extra units in their community.
Time.
And I would love to see the
Time.
Okay.
Sorry, Jacqueline.
No. It's okay.
Dee, go ahead. You have 1 minute, Dee.
Oh, okay. Well, I would say that the San Diego density bonus law has been misused by developers to build effectively large apartments in residential neighborhoods. This directly affects me. The abuse has hit home for me. my son's home. Across the street from him, a developer came in, bought a single family house, converted it to a duplex, and then put a 2-story, 8 single units in the backyard with no sense of parking, anything like this. I can't even go to my son's house now to be able to go to his house and find a parking spot to visit. Uh, so, and the other thing too, I thought since it was so close to my son's home, I would check out the pricing and perhaps think about moving there. But the pricing was way excessively
Time.
more rental than what I was paying for a 1-bedroom a mile away.
Time. Cliff, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I think we really need a programmatic way to look at these developments that are being proposed and judge them and be able to stop them through using environmental issues, using code issues, and so forth. There's got to be a way to do it to bring the power back to the planning commission, and the planning groups. So I think my way would be trying to figure out how to get a programmatic way for us to be heard and to be able to have solid footing on what we submit back and restore the power to the planning commissions and planning groups.
Awesome. Thank you.
And by the way, I agree with all the density stuff by far.
All right, Christine.
Hi, I've been fighting the bonus density projects for the past 4 years against the city, and it's a very big challenge to push back against them. It's all ministerial, so it's very difficult from a planning group perspective to push back. But I think that there are ways that, because we're in the coastal area, that we might be able to coordinate with the other coastal groups and possibly get heard at the Coastal Commission. A lot of the stuff comes through and then it's delayed, and then it doesn't end up on the ends up on the Coastal Commission. So we are always 2 years behind the rest of the city on getting these density projects into our areas, which is why we're always sort of taken by surprise, like, how's it happening sudden? But it's been happening the rest of the city. So I think that I think it'd be great for us to, I would like to, we talked about what rules. I wouldn't mind being a liaison to one of the other planning groups, because I think if we could try to coordinate, we could do better.
All right, thank you. Sean, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, so just to make sure that I'm answering the question, I would say that I'd like to help drive projects for the Sunset Cliffs erosion plan. I'm not sure how far along you all have made that plan, but I know there's a lot that can be done because the cliffs look different every time I walk them. So I would like to help with that. Unlike the rest of you, I don't think that I can really hit the ground running with certain projects, but here's the thing, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that means that I would ask a lot of questions. I think that taking it slow is not always a bad thing. I think that my perspective and my ability to raise the right questions would be an asset, and I would cast a wide net in terms of projects that I'd be interested in joining and helping to drive. So yeah, I think there's a lot of problems to solve.
Thank you, Sean. All right. Kelsey, did you have a question? None? All right. Well, with that, we've gotten all the questions from our election committee. I'd like to open the floor up to the board members and community members. I saw Andrew had his hand up. Andrew, you have the floor for a question, and we'll start first with Javier this next time.
Yes, my question is for the candidates. Do you support the current sustainable development area in Point Loma as it currently exists?
Thank you, Andrew. That's a very good question, and I highly oppose the sustainable development area. It makes no common sense. The state studies have indicated that people beyond a half a mile don't use transportation, that the people with the state guidelines within a half mile, that people that live within a half mile use transportation, but once you get beyond the half mile, the usage falls way off. So it's something that needs to be repealed. I know there's a lawsuit ongoing, and I certainly support the lawsuit trying to repeal the SDA. So Doesn't make any sense.
Thank you, Javier. Jacqueline, do you have 1 minute?
I have to echo Javier. I'm in the same agreement as he is and don't like what's being proposed by our governor or our mayor. So I'm ditto, Javier.
All right, thank you. Dee Brown?
Well, the current sustainable development area in Point Loma effectively includes most of Point Loma, and therefore it allows developers to build increased density within a 1 mile radius of current and future. That's the key thing, and future mass transit lines. This is really unacceptable. All studies show and indicate that pedestrians will not walk more than 1/2 mile. Myself, I wouldn't walk a 1/4 of a mile to catch a bus. and I'm more active than a lot of seniors. So studies, it should be limited to current funded mass transit lines, not future lines. That's stupid. I'm sorry to say it, but it is. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Cliff, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly just a way to get around parking, right? I mean, to be able to say that, people use mass transit because parking's not available, especially in the point, doesn't make any sense. And the usage of the mass transit doesn't support it. So obviously I'm against it. I'd like to see it repealed as well. I don't think it makes sense. And something we should fight as a community for sure.
Thank you, Cliff. Christine, you have 1 minute.
My issue with the sustainable development area is I agree with the point Javier makes about 1 mile walking distance. All transit studies out there show that most people will walk 1/2 a mile to a trolley and 1/4 mile to a bus. I've been studying this. This is my topic for Neighbors for a Better San Diego for 4 years, is looking into how is the SDA built. And the issue in Point Loma and a lot of the areas is they've included about 31 bus lines that were supposed to be upgraded and they haven't been upgraded, and there's no plans to upgrade them. They also use these things they call rapid bus routes, and they claim that they're going to be bus rapid transit, and they're not. They can't be, because to be bus rapid transit, they have to have dedicated bus lines, and we're not going to get dedicated bus lines for those. So I think that the city needs to we need to push back on the city and tell them they need to use current transit when they're modeling and when they're picking up when they're picking major transit stops, both for the TPA and the SDA.
Okay, thank you. Time. The next one is Sean. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about this project, but I had time. Thankfully, I wasn't first. So I looked into it a little bit, and I kind of concur. I don't think that we should be using kind of like speculative transit ideas for creating these kinds of rules, and just doesn't seem like the trust at all is there for them to actually not cut corners. So while I know that I would need to look more into it to have a sufficient answer to your question, I think that it's pretty clear that it's not being done the right way, or proposed at least.
Thank you. Meredith, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't have enough information, but I'm actually inclined for it. And I think that this is exactly why planning boards are being swept aside, because we're putting parking over people. And again, you have an avalanche of a population that needs housing. That's why 54 state bills were passed last year, most of them bypassing planning boards. You already have 21 this year, including eliminating housing from the purview of the Coastal Commission. Because yes, existing planning groups matter, but so do all the people who don't even know what a planning board is and need housing. Yes, I am very active in state housing law. I know what's coming down the pike. I just wrote a piece of legislation that's being passed to help with the LA fires, but we can't just say no all the time. We have to work with developers and people. The last thing I would say is we're not going to have buses or own cars within 5 years. We're going to have, you look at the Ford CEO, we're going to have subscription services to cars, driverless cars, EVs.
Time. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. All right. Well, any more questions for our candidates?
I have one.
Sure, go ahead, Larry.
A couple of you mentioned the ADU bonus program, and I'd just like to know the opinion of each one of you. Do you support the ADU bonus program? And if so, do you have a number limit that, like in Claremont, there's one that has 17 ADUs on the lot. Do you think it's realistic to put a number limit on the number of ADUs? And some of you may just say one, some of you may say different. That's my question.
Okay, so we'll start with Jacqueline. Go ahead.
Thank you, Larry, for that question. My daughter just bought a home in Claremont, and I drive by now and I'm seeing these huge high rises, and it's changing the culture and the community when you add that many units. So I believe if you want to add a unit to add your senior parent who wants to live there, or maybe your own kid who wants to go to college here because housing is a problem for college students, I would say I'm okay with that. But if you're adding multiple units to a community that doesn't have sustainable parking for that, because Claremont, I mean, there's these projects in these cul-de-sacs. There's no parking for those people. I'm not in agreement with that. That's changing the culture and environment.
Thank you. Dee?
Idea of the ADUs, as far as I was concerned, was that it was intended for 1 or 2 units maximum. For, like, for instance, a granny flat where a senior mom, dad, aunt, uncle could live in it and could afford to either help with the costs of it, but stay within their limited income. Or a student that is going to college, some family member that needs assistance. The whole idea of it, in my mind, was that it was set up to be affordable. Number one, they're not affordable. I've checked numerous ones that have been built, and none of them fall within the affordable range. And two, I think that you don't need effectively large apartment buildings in a single family neighborhood. I think that it should be restricted to 1 to 2 units per lot and no more than that.
Thank you. Cliff, you have the floor, 1 minute.
Sorry, I couldn't have to mute there. Look, it's all about cumulative impact, right? I agree that the intent was 1 to 2, and now we're stretching to try to get as many as we can and get density population higher versus urban sprawl, right? That's basically the idea. But I do think what we need to do is come up with a density that we're willing to accept. And it may mean you get 1 on one lot, you may get 3 on the other lot. And so I think we should look at it by block and say a certain number of square feet can be developed per block. And whoever gets it first gets it. And that way, not these monstrosities. Like, I live down on Inglewood Street. It was just built on Fenland. It has like 40 units in it, right? With not enough parking. Like, that's obviously cumulative impact of that is way higher. So I think we need to come up with again, programmatic way to figure out how to figure out the right amount of impact we're willing to take as a community.
Awesome. Thank you. Christine, you have 1 minute.
I don't support the bonus ADU program at all. I think we should roll back to what the state codes allow: 1 detached ADU and 1 JADU. And HCD has just changed their interpretation of the law and has said that there can be a second ADU as long as it's within the envelope of the primary residence. So that's quadrupling the density on a lot, because now you can have the primary residence, an ADU, a JADU, and then that other ADU. So 2 ADUs, 1 JADU. That's 4 units on a lot. That's a lot of density. If we're talking about needing to build homes for some future population, then we have places to do that, and we should focus them on the transit corridors that exist so that we capitalize on the transit that currently exists in the city. When we talk about what's the future of the population growth, The avalanche isn't as big as it used to be. It was going to be 41.5 million people by now, and right now we're at 39.5 in the state of California. And in San Diego's not growing as nearly as fast. We're about 10% below what the forecast was 4 years ago for our population right now. So when people say there's this huge population coming, we're really slowing. We were going to peak in 2050. We're now peaking in 2040. And if our growth rate continues where we're at, we would be peaking somewhere in the mid 2030s. So we need to remember that we shouldn't have to destroy our house for imaginary people coming in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, you have 1 minute.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, one of the reasons that the growth isn't quite what was anticipated is because people, especially young people, can't afford housing, and there's not a place for them to grow their family unless they move very far inland. That's my perspective. And so I very much echo Cliff's argument, which is that it kind of depends on other factors. What density are we willing to tolerate? And what can our infrastructure handle? And yeah, kind of base it block by block without, I suppose, getting too lost in the weeds and going too granular. But yeah, it's a complicated issue, and I would love to learn more about it, but that's kind of my preliminary opinion.
Thank you, Sean. Meredith.
Yeah, I agree with Cliff. And having said that, I mean, I actually have a family doing 6 ADUs. It's all for the family. They have mom and dad, they have 3 adult children with grandkids, and they've got like aunts and uncles, and they want a family compound. And the only way to do it on a 8,000 square foot lot was the ADU bonus program. That is a family that wants to build their finances together, live together. To me, that makes sense. And I don't know about the houses in Claremont. There is parking on that. I do know that. But I also know Claremont is just south of the 52, east of the 805, and west of the 5. It's going to grow up. It's going to be like Boston. That is the transit corridor. And so that's where we need to think about, we know it's coming. The wealthy and upper middle class people are moving out. That's why we have a $68 million budget deficit, because the upper middle class moved out, and the young, hardworking people who pay the majority of taxes are moving out. So that's why we've lost people.
All right. Javier.
Thank you. And thank you for the question. Yeah, I support the state regulations where, as Christine said, that you allowed junior ADU and an ADU unit, and with the required setbacks and height limitations. I certainly can support that for exactly what they were used to call granny flats for your grandparents, family members, and so forth. And we know that the ADU bonus program is not going to go away. The mayor's going to continue to support that, and so I could support it in where it belongs, in the transportation priority areas, as long as it's restricted by the FARs and the underlying zoning requirements and so forth. Then I think that's where the program belongs, with its limitations, controlled by the underlying FARs.
Time. All right. I'm going to go ahead and ask the next question. Andrew, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did, actually. Yeah. This is a question for Meredith Munger.
Oh, no. The questions are to be asked of all the candidates. So,
well, this is specific because she has a logo on there which says aduloan.net. So I was wondering if she's going to have a conflict of interest.
No, I would argue, I don't, I actually lend mostly in Los Angeles, but also in La Mesa and north, but no, and I would argue that technically everybody, a lot of these people on the board has a conflict of interest. What I can bring, in fact, what I would argue I bring to the table is a special expertise. And also I don't lobby for permits or planning boards, and certainly not any, I don't do any commercial lending. I focus on families, on owner occupied families, and particularly seniors. But what I can do is I know the math and the incentives that attract developers who are always motivated by profit. And there's ways to work with them to change their minds and develop things that are beautiful with parking that we like and follows the direction that our community has unified to commit to.
So you don't originate ADU loans yourself?
All right. Point of order. Andrew, I don't want this back and forth. I appreciate the question. Thank you, Meredith. I hope that did not, typically I wouldn't call for that, but it seems like you were comfortable with that. But again, I'd like to refrain it to questions or ask that it be for all the candidates for them to do that. I do appreciate the participation and the passion though, Andrew. Thank you. I do have one more question in the chat from Chase. And so this will be our final question of the night. And we'll start with Jacqueline. She'll have the floor, and then we'll go in the same, I'll call in the rotation, and then we'll wrap up the meeting. And so Chase's question, it's in the chat. It says, if in removing car traffic by encouraging local biking benefits the whole community, what things would you advocate for to encourage biking, walking, or other car-free transport? So Jack,
Okay.
you have 1 minute.
So I think we need to rethink our biking lanes because some of them are dangerous. And we know that from Nimitz, that when the bike rides and then you want to pull to the left, it's not safe. So I think we need to be more conscientious on when we create bike lanes. Are we hurting safety? And are we hurting merchants? Because right now there's a lot of merchants that say there's no parking in their communities because of the biking lanes. So I think we need to rethink how we're doing our biking lanes because not everybody's embracing riding a bike in San Diego yet. I think our city's ahead of us in what they expect us to do and give up our cars. So I think we need to kind of pull back and say, how are we affecting the merchants?
Time. All right, thank you. The next one up is D. You have 1 minute.
I will say that I have seen that bike lanes need to be reconsidered due to the fact that there's bike lanes that I've seen that actually make it very difficult to drive in and drive by, and I've yet to see any bikers actually in those bike lanes any time of night, early mornings, late in the evening, or during the day. I've seen, well, I will take that back. I think I've seen 2 bikers in the last 2 years. I've seen 2 bikers, and that was on a weekend. And that was 2 separate bikers on separate days and times. I think consideration should be given to the people that do wish to bike, but like most seniors are not going to bike. Try to get a pregnant woman with a child to take her kid to school using the bike path. It's not going to work. You know, they want us to get out of our cars, but
time. Thank you, Cliff. You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I'd just say a lot of the things that are being used in California right now were done in Europe. We're just copying Europe. And so bike lanes have been used there to try to reduce traffic and trying to keep people out of cars. And so the bike lane really isn't about bikes. It's about trying to figure out how to slow traffic, bring traffic down, and they're unsafe. So my easiest way to get around is I love my golf cart. So I like the low speed vehicles quite a bit. The parking's easier and so forth. But I do think we have to think through that a little bit further and really call a spade on what bike lanes really are.
All right. Christine?
Bike lanes be reconsidered a little bit, in the sense that I think that it'd be best if we were kind of trying to think about how to separate our bike lanes from our traffic. In San Diego, all our bike lanes seem to get just put on the busiest street, and we just take a lane and we make it a bike lane. It was just in Bend, Oregon, and it was just beautiful. They had this great bike lane, but they put it separate. It was segregated away. And like, I ride my bike around Point Loma, but it's really difficult to go north. If you want to go up to Mission Beach, you have to go all the way down into, because that transition there where the bike lane, you go to the end of a freeway, you're going to cross right in front of that traffic. It's really dangerous. And I just look at that and I think, why is this the way the bike lane's designed? It could have been designed with a safety in mind, like an underpass or an overpass, so that the bikes wouldn't have to get caught up in that traffic. And I wish that Sandag would really focus a little more on putting bike lanes and thinking about the safety of the bike lanes instead of just overlaying them where the busiest traffic is.
Okay. All right. We have Sean up. You have 1 minute.
So I think it's a very uphill battle, because I think a lot of the groundwork for a walkable city is kind of in the underlying urban plan, the infrastructure, the zoning, and it's really hard to design on top of all of that a way to make it more human friendly. I think it's a space issue. You find yourself walking around, and it's very obvious to me if I'm in a place for a person or if I'm in a place for a car. So I think, yeah, like Cliff said, lowering the speed of a place that you want people walking is kind of a key there. Encouraging use of storefronts and making places feel like a place and not feel like this just random place that cars pass through, and you're expected to just sort of coexist with these very heavy, very fast machines that are not other people. So yeah, I don't know exactly how to tackle that, but I'd love to find out.
Meredith, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I liked what both Christine and Cliff said. We have lots we can learn from other cities and including Europe, particularly LA and San Francisco are setting up separate lanes between the bikes, and the bike lanes and the major streets. But I think it makes sense to rethink how we do a continuous bikeway off Rosecrans, not there, but continuing through Liberty Station, so you have a solid east-west lane that then connects up to Mission Bay, but also down to the Bayshore Bikeway. And next to that can be walking. I think they're a strategic approach to that. And then they're close enough to the merchants, so if they want to go to the merchants, you can park your bike behind the major street and walk up, the side. So the bikes aren't interfering with the walkways on the major thoroughfares where the merchants are, and they're not hitting pedestrians.
Javier.
Hey, I'm a longtime bike rider, and bike lanes certainly have their place. What makes bike riding in San Diego very challenging is all the hills and the terrain. So in Point Loma is very unique. We're out in a peninsula trying to use transportation or biking if you need to go to Sorrento Valley. I mean, on transportation, it's an hour and a half, and people just in Point Loma just don't have the means or the easy use of transportation. So I have a long-term vision for reducing cars and transportation in the point, and I think we've discussed this in the long-range planning, and that's the potential extension of the people mover from the airport and extending it through Liberty Station to Midway. I think that would reduce a lot of traffic on Rosecrans, and so that's sort of my long-term vision.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank you all for taking the time to share your vision and the insights to our community members. For all these questions that our community members came out and took the time to ask. So again, I want to remind you that the Peninsula Community Planning Board and community planning groups all over the city, I mean, they play a very crucial role in shaping the communities. And it's been a really fulfilling experience for myself. And I really wish you all the best. And I'm so encouraged by the things I've heard tonight, the vision that you have for our communities, and the fact that you're volunteering. And I mean, that is, to me, you're good in my book if you're out here giving of your time and showing up for communities. So again, I want to remind you that this next week we have our election next Thursday. It is in person at the Point Loma Library. So I want to again remind you there cannot be any electioneering during that time. So don't be out there trying with any election marketing materials or trying to influence the vote of people who are trying to participate in the election. You're more than welcome to come and bring, your proof of ID and proof of residency and make a vote. We encourage you to spread the word about your candidacy to your friends, your neighbors. Utilize social media. Nextdoor is a great opportunity. And one thing we're going to do just to promote community engagement is to, again, post this on the website so that our community members can have an opportunity, if they weren't able to attend tonight's meeting, to get an understanding and a feel for all of the candidates who want to represent them on the Peninsula Community Planning Board. So in the chat, I put the information, again, the date for the election. It's at 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's going to be in tandem with the our monthly board meeting. And so the board meeting will start at 6 p.m. And by the end of that meeting, we should have a vote result to provide to the community with the election results. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me in between now and then. If you have any, if you want to learn more about these candidates, again, you can review this video recording. We'll put it on the website. And again, their applications are also on the website for you to view. So again, thank you everyone for being here. If there's nothing, again, I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Get out the word about the election. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mandy, for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.